Bennett Sung, thank you so much for joining me. So, of course, you're quoted in the Robot Proof Recruiter,
Yeah.
first and second edition, I hasten to add. So at the time that I quoted you this time, on page 174, you were with Humanly, consulting to Humanly, and we were talking about Humanly is a unified conversational AI for recruiting platform that assists with everything from screening and scheduling, engagement, reference checks, and candidate feedback. But what sets it apart is Humanly Voice, which I love, which acts like a flight recorder for the interview. And the AI interview assistant captures, transcribes, and analyzes each interview conversation, which you can then use to become more confident making hiring decisions and overcome unconscious bias. Helpfully, it also works with stay and exit interviews.
Yes.
So I like that, which is very cool and leads me into my very first question.
Sure.
So, how does your technology put the human first?
The way Humanly puts the human first is really to enable hiring managers to be better.
Mhm.
So, for example, as the flight recorder or Humanly Voice looks at what's happening inside the interview, we can start to take a look and track, different communication behaviors, how fast you're talking, how much interruptions the hiring manager and the candidate make of each other. But I think what's most important is we start to look at it kind of an aggregate. We start to look at things that really focus on key experiences that are probably making the interview not as fair as we all see it to be. For example, one of our customers, after a series of interviews for entry-level engineer positions, ended up realizing that female candidates were given 12 minutes less time to talk inside the interview over the male counterparts.
Wow.
So when we start to think about, looking at what happened in those interviews, were the hiring managers late for the interview? Were they interrupting too much? And such. So there are so many different interesting behavioral elements that end up becoming a coach to the hiring manager, to the recruiter, TA leader, right? How do we make hiring fairer? And that really is how we're bringing the human into the recruiting process more.
Yeah. It sounds also like that would mean that they would save time, though. Surely if there's greater consistency, does that help with that as well? We all want to save time.
Time savings is a natural part. It's really kind of I think the baseline for any recruiting technology. In this situation, the way we're saving time is that this interview AI assistant is also your note taker.
Yes.
So when we also think about how the hiring manager can now focus on the candidate, what they're saying, getting to know them versus scribbling notes down.
Yeah.
This note taker puts all of that information right inside your applicant tracking system or CRM. So that is another big time saver, right?
I love that.
It is one of the areas that, it's not as what I would say strategic, but it is a functional time-saving value that we can continue to push forward on and really make hiring even more efficient. So it's efficiency and fair, consistent processing.
I love that.
Yeah.
So my last curly question for you. Dun, dun, dun. When leaders are buying HR tech, what's the number one mistake they should avoid? They need to stop.
They need to make sure that their new HR technology investment integrates inside their existing workflows. There is really no intended reason why you should have to log in into multitudes of different systems, because when you think of the recruiting tech stack, it's getting more complicated every day, right? You just layer onto the applicant tracking system, you layer on CRM, you layer on chatbots, you layer on voice now. I mean, these are how many different systems am I going to need to, log into? So finding and looking at the integration experience and making sure that first and foremost, you know what that experience looks like so that you can accommodate for any sort of change management. And in our situation, what we're trying to do is minimize or eliminate any change management because we're just simply built into your existing platform.
It's there. You don't have to open something else.
It's something, it's there. Exactly.
It's like every time they say download another app, I'm like, no.
I mean, if I was a recruiter, hiring manager, and I had to download all these individual apps, my phone will have at least
Load
pages.
I have enough trouble finding them.
Yeah, that's just my work life and not my personal life. So
Yeah.
it's like, it's finding, striking the balance. It's also realizing that, there is this necessary element. Go through what they call a design thinking session of how all these systems really work together, because that is the other element that will prohibit really getting full adoption, right? Integration is not only going to create the efficiency, it's going to create much streamlined data and data integrity, but most importantly, it's going to get everybody excited to want to use all of the tools because they're so connected into each other and they don't have to worry about it.
Perfect. Now, if people want to know more about you or connect with you, what's the best way to do that?
Best way to do that is through humanly.io, the website. There is a number of ways you can engage. We actually have a chatbot that will allow you to schedule time with the organization. So go there and check out, just learn more about conversational AI, and then at the same time, book some time.
And you, if they want to connect with you personally, just LinkedIn.
Let's connect with me on LinkedIn.
Say you saw this. I saw you.
What is it? Is LinkedIn/n/Bennett Sung.
Easy. And it's Sung.
Sung.
Bennett Sung, thank you so much.
Yes, anytime.